Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Saturday, October 31st, 2020, 10 a.m. Central, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Well, it's Saturday. That means it's GM Review Day. Well, what do we got? Looking at Pandorum. Thought I'd do something special for Halloween or themed toward Halloween. And, bunch of threads on Facebook and message boards and such. Everybody saying, hey, what's your favorite horror movie? What horror movies can you recommend? And one that I think is very, very good, although, well, I'm not alone in it. I'm probably in the minority, is a movie called Pandorum. It's a science fiction thriller horror movie. It takes place aboard a spaceship. And, this is the cover for the DVD version that I have. It's not the only one. It's rated R. There's a fair amount of gore and violence in it. I understand that there is a unrated version out there, but I've not seen it, nor attempted to even get it, so let's be fair about that. Here, let me slide myself over in there. There we go. Nice. Got my Gary Con Autumn Revel shirt on today. I figure I should remind people, too, next weekend, starting on Thursday. Next weekend is virtual Gamehole Con. Burp. And hope everyone's excited about that. I know Red and John, who are both here in the chat right now, are going. So, it should be fun. It's very exciting. Woo-hoo, as they say. Red Barn Games. It's been a little while since you've been here. John makes it in and out. It's not a requirement. You know, I knew when I started doing the show that I was not going to be seeing most people most of the time. Just not possible. It's a daytime show. It's in the middle morning in the Midwest as far as that's concerned. And, if you're working and stuff. I mean, when we were in lockdown and people who were not quote-unquote essential workers, I would see quite a few people who I don't see anymore. Hopefully they catch up with shows on YouTube, on the Mark CMG YouTube channel. The links are in the show notes. They're in the channel. They're in the Facebook forum. They're in, if you're connected to me in any which way, if you're connected to me on Twitter or Twitch or my Patreon or MeWe or Facebook or Discord or Twitch or anything, Instagram, if you're connected to me any which way at all, then it's pretty easy to find a link to both this Twitch channel and to the YouTube channel. Everything's interconnected. It's an intraweb. An intraweb of crazy stuff. Anyway, let's talk about Pandorum. Happy Halloween, everybody. This is the whole point. By checking out a horror movie. Pretty scary. let's see, what do we want to talk about with this movie? I want to talk about a few things. First off, the title, Pandorum, is about a fictional mental disorder. Wikipedia describes it as a fictional slang term for a form of psychosis called orbital dysfunctional syndrome, caused by deep space and triggered by emotional stress. This leads to paranoia, delirium, and nose bleeding. There's that little something extra. The movie's from 2009. It's a science fiction horror movie. The two writers, Travis Malloy wrote a screenplay. The director, Christian Alvart, also wrote something of his own. And when the project started snowballing, they took both of them and sort of melded them together. This is the history of this, how this came to be, of this story. They talk about it as Lovecraftian horror and survival adventure. I guess that's true, although Lovecraftian, I guess, it doesn't have any direct nods to Lovecraft. I guess indirectly it does, and a lot of horror does, really. So, survival adventure, sure. So for some reason, and we don't really get the full story right away. The ship is launched into space with lots of people from the Earth in hopes that they will make it in 123 years to this other planet that we know can support life. The crew, the flight crew, most people are they're in pods, they're in stasis. There's a flight crew that rotates every 2 years. And there are, I think, a dozen shifts. So ultimately, the crew will have aged 10 years because they're 2 years on and then however many years off. To span the 123 years. So Tanis is the name of the planet that they're going to colonize. And Elysium is the name of the ship. Now, originally, the script was called Pandorum. Originally, the script was called Elysium. Is that right? No, the ship. My bad. Originally, the ship was going to be called Pandorum, and it was supposed to be a prison ship. And it was, let's just shoot these people into space sort of thing. And then this other, that was one of the two scripts, and the other one was about 4 people on an interstellar flight that get this psychosis caused by deep space. And when the two were married, one of the things was to convert this prison ship into a sort of an ark. And let me do this. Let me say, I recommend this film. I think it's a good horror thriller kind of film. I think it's got some pretty good backstory to it, and I think it's got some pretty interesting, it's definitely, production values wise, visually very good too. Not just as a horror film, but also as a sci-fi film. So despite some naysayers and detractors, It's also produced by the team that did Resident Evil films and a number of others. This Paul W.S. Anderson and the rest of the people that tend to work with him. They did that over the top Three Musketeers movie, I think in 2011, which is daring, but I don't think that was very well. I know it wasn't very well received, and I didn't particularly care for it either. Although I like most of the talent in it, and I'm a big Mila fan too. So, you know, one of Paul W. S. Anderson's mentors, or one of the people he feels influenced him, would be Luc Besson, who had done like The Messenger and some other early Mila films. So it's not surprising that this became a regular thing in his pantheon of film and his body of work. Pandorum, she's not in. However, Dennis Quaid, Ben Foster, and a handful of international stars. It's a production that was made in Germany. It lost money at the box office the first weekend, and I think after a few weeks, the production company that had been created to make this film, and this is kind of a thing where they create production companies for individual films, and then if the film doesn't do well, they can just bankrupt the company and then move on and start fresh with another one, right? Um, this goes back to the producers. Tom Wama liked that joke. Anyway, recommend the film. A lot of stuff in here. There's going to be spoilers, though, in the rest of this show. So if you're going to continue to follow along with this, XL809. Hey, Henry, how you doing there, Bob? Prisoners in the space colony ship prototype. Luke Besson is eccentric. Yeah. Sometimes he works, sometimes he's over the top. Valerian was good. Indeed. He's not directly working on this in any way, shape, or form. But definitely that kind of next generation that comes out of his stable, or comes out of his sphere of influence, work on this film. Interestingly, I think, so here's something that's nice, and here's a GMing review takeaway from this film. They name the ship Elysium, and they don't make a big deal out of it. But it's just one of those little touches. You know, they could have said, "Look how clever we are," and whatever. But Elysium, of course, is aka the Elysian Fields or the Elysian Plain, is in Greek mythology a paradise to which heroes on whom the gods conferred immortality were sent. That's the original concept. This is like 8th or 9th century BC, 7th or 8th century, and they think that this may have been drawn from Minoan religion, which is even older than Greek mythology. Homer, a place of kind of morphed it into a place of perfect happiness at the ends of the earth on the banks of Oceanus, which I believe was their name for the Atlantic. A similar description was given by Hesiod in the Isles of the Blessed. Those favored by the gods, not necessarily with immortality, would enter Elysium and were thereby made immortal, and then it morphed further over time to just being a place for the blessed dead, or a place where those who lived a righteous life. So over a span of 6 or 7 centuries, writers and authors of various works would reimagine the place or adjust its meaning. But it's interesting, too, that this being the name of that ship can imply any one of those variant meanings. So, are they heroes? Are they righteous? Are they blessed? Are they immortal? Well, it is like a stasis ship, so there's the thinking there, and maybe there's a little bit of a tip there. I don't want to overly spoil things in case people are watching that will still watch the film, so I'm going to try to skirt around some stuff here. If you've seen it, you'll probably pick up on some of what I'm saying. Um, XL809 says Elysium was the good side of the underworld, Tartarus the bad. That's one interpretation, although that's not completely the case. Um, in some uh, in some versions, Tartarus is just the underworld, and Elysium is a different place, rather. Right? But yeah, it depends on what version you pick up on. Roman youngest, then Greek. The Mycenaeans, Greeks before that. Egyptians were even older, as well as Sumerians. Yeah, but all of those are individual cultures. There's some lifting of stuff. Um, hey, John. The I think most recently I was watching a series of lectures on the changeover from pagan religions to Christianity in late Rome, and the professor was discussing how certain aspects of not just Greek but other Middle Eastern religions were co opted by the Romans and adjusted in such a way that they could integrate more easily, and that there were even during the spread of the Hellenistic era, the spread of Greek culture, um, how some on the fringes of that sphere of influence would apply to be part of that network of city states, if you will, and would elevate their temples as if they were tied to, say, Zeus or Hera or whoever, when in fact they were originally built, say the temple was originally built to a leading god in a different pantheon, but because you could say this was the head of the gods, we could say this is it's just another name, so really this is for Zeus, and so on, and thereby uh, create a create a sort of a stream of tourism to that temple based on it now being a temple to Zeus. So hey, you and all the Greek Empire, here's another place you can visit and worship. And some towns in Asia Minor or Anatolia, um, we're very much about converting their spaces to allow their towns to prosper in that way. Um, Nevertheless, we're getting a little fur afield here for Elysium, but these are all things you can take away from this movie if you examine some of the nomenclature used within it. Pandorum too. There's an interesting thing for GMs to pick up on and borrow, or scrape the serial numbers off and stick into a. Doesn't have to be deep space, but maybe with Dungeons and Dragons in particular, with adventurers spending so much time underground and dwarves in particular, who culturally in D&D are often depicted as being um, creatures that species that lives underground and thrives underground. Perhaps there are certain diseases or psychoses that can be attributed to long, not beyond just like claustrophobia or whatever. Maybe that can be a part of it. That can then be created within your game world to explain certain phenomena. Maybe there is something akin to radiation or a radiation type effect that comes from anything that's enchanted with magic. Maybe magic users are prone to such a thing. Maybe there's a longevity or rather a rapid aging that happens with maybe older wizards look wizened. Maybe they're not all that old. Maybe it has something to do with being affected by the magic that they themselves try to harness and use in their lives. So, different things you can take from it there. What's pretty neat, I think, about this is that this movie is, in a sense, a dungeon crawl. So, you're in a spaceship. You come out of, and again, we're getting into some spoilers, so you've already got my recommendation. Tune this out, go watch it, come back, see this later. We'll talk about it, or I'll talk about it. You can pick up on what I'm saying after you've watched it if you want. Um, a couple of the flight crew come out of this stasis from these pods, these hibernation pods, and they've got to figure out why the ship is not functioning. They get one station up and running so they can start to tap into some of the systems and figure out some of what's going on, but they realize these periodic surges um, are denoting that the engine core is going critical. Doesn't make sense. It should be able to last for the 123 years and far beyond. So they've got to figure out what's wrong with it, or at least get to the core and reset it, reinitialize it. And that becomes the clock. Now we have a movie now we have an adventure that is on a clock. And this is something you can take for your games as well and work them into it. The two are a corporal and a lieutenant, such as we know from it at this point in the movie. And they're part of that flight crew that is supposed to rotate in and out. But they don't see anybody else. They see some empty pods. They don't really know. They can't get onto the bridge because it's locked down, and they have to reinitialize the core to get all the systems up and then gain access to the actual bridge, which is under a certain kind of security lockdown that they cannot override where they are. There's a series of claustrophobic moments as one of the two goes through some ventilation shafts where there's a lot of, like a chase, a lot of wires and tubes running, and it just gets tighter and tighter. Then it's discovered there are some beings on the ship. There are some individuals moving around the ship that aren't part of the flight crew and somehow have gotten out of their pods, where most of the 60,000 people that are supposed to be in pods on this ship, it's really just supposed to be the flight crew coming in and out. But now he's seeing a couple of people around, and then he sees these people that are kind of like super hyper. What could go wrong, says John. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Now remember, these are people on a ship, so ostensibly these are flyboys. So let's let's not give them the same sort of trouble that we'd give to landlubbers, huh? People on the ground, our foot soldiers, our fine soldiers in the army, John, and the wonderful people in the Marines. I don't know. Do we think of the Air Force as an extension of the Navy as it originally was? Do we then think of anything that goes off into space as an extension of the Air Force? And forget the Space Force. Let's not even go there, right? Anywho, they've got to figure out what's going on. And they start to run across people, and then they start to run across these sort of super powered mutant zombie like cannibalistic creatures that are apparently eating people whenever they get popped out of pods. And they seem almost mindless. They have a sort of a hunting instinct, but they don't seem to communicate in the same way, except very aggressively. And that becomes the theme going forward. Well, there's this whole series of encounters along the way to get to the reactor core. Eventually, and again, spoilers. There's going to be some. They get this reset after dealing with a bunch of these creatures. There's a few people that get picked up along the way. So it becomes this sort of adventure, this hero's journey as well. It taps into that whole zeitgeist. And the adventuring party grows as he moves along and gathers some allies, but then also gathers some less than useful and less than reputable individuals to his side as well. When he gets back, we have to deal with this whole thing with the, and I'm not going to get into this because there are a lot of, in the last half hour or so, let's say 20 minutes of the movie, there are any number of twists and turns, which when I first saw it, I was expecting some twists and turns, but the ones that were presented were foreshadowed but masked enough that they were, in the words of the great short story author Flannery O'Connor, surprising but inevitable. So once they happened, I realized, well, of course, this is how it had to happen, but I didn't necessarily, wasn't necessarily fully aware or tipped off to it based on what was given me information-wise. So, good movie. But like I say, lots of things in here that can be transposed into any kind of RPG, especially if you want to have a sort of a group working towards solving a huge problem on a clock, on a timer. I think you'll find that there's plenty here. Anywho, that is about it. I think we're down for time. I recommend it. It's scary. There's some jump scares in here for sure. So, definitely have your loved ones sit closer to the television than you are so they can't see you get scared or surprised. I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us in the channel today. Got you in on the Red Barn, Jonas 9. Oh, okay. Let me get you in here too, Excel. In on the list. We keep a list. Every week, we keep track of anybody who's a follower of the channel, who also chimes in on the stream chat while we're live. Appreciate it, Henry. We got you on there from earlier in the week. So I want to thank everybody who did so and who follows the channel and who has chimed in. I appreciate it very much. I also want to say, where are we at? Here we go. This happy Halloween to everybody. This has been a GM review of Pandorum 2009, a 2009 movie. Also, 10 a.m. tomorrow and every day. Come check out the show some more. Tomorrow we got a rules retrospective. I think we're going to look at those naval combat rules from the first edition DMG. It'll go into ships and combat with ships and general any mechanics that are around the ships will be part of this. Monday we have weekly news and announcements, cartography and world building on Tuesday, campaign discussion on Wednesday, GMing tips on Thursday, and building adventures on Friday. Back around to GM reviews next Saturday. Every day, 10 a.m. Central Time. If you're catching up with us on YouTube, thank you very much. Give us a thumbs up on the videos you watch, and please do subscribe to the channel if you want to leave some comments. John, why is this the first I'm hearing? Yoda Stein, Yodastien. Twitch channel is doing a live stream for Extra Life. Half hour from now for 24 hours. Good stuff, buddy. Glad to hear it. I will talk to you a little bit later. Have a great one. I hope you raise a lot of money for Extra Life. I know it's a fantastic thing to do. I helped you do it last year, a little over a year ago. And always happy to help out when I can. You take care of yourself. From the OK Grognard Show in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.